We are live. And we are live. Welcome everybody to Lubbock Compact Live for Wednesday, December 15th. And it's almost the holidays, folks. We will probably not have another show until the new year.
Yeah.
So this is about it. And we're gonna just basically wrap up with kind of where the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars conversation is, just to get everybody to speed on that and wrap that up, because that will be developing over these next few weeks anyway. And so we just want to kind of let you know where things were as of at least last week. This week there was a little more discussion, but this is kind of based off of kind of what we know as of last week's meetings, where there was extensive conversation about this stuff. And so general overview on this is that the available funds that we have, the total was 56.6 million that Lubbock was getting, and this came in two lump sums. So the first one we've already received, which is the 28.3 million, and those are available through June of 2022. And of those dollars, 14.3 million have not been allocated yet. And then after the June 2022, we will get the next 28.3 million. Now there's a couple of key dates and deadlines for this stuff. So all of these funds have to be committed by December 31st of 2024. So that means we have to have somewhere to put it. Doesn't have to be spent yet, but all of the funds have to be spent. Everything has to be done and completed by December 31st of 2026.
Yeah. And so, for those, just to give some context there, these are actually fairly long windows of time to be able to make choices about how this financing is used. And the American Rescue Plan dollars, the mandate from the federal government was that these should be allocated for projects that will go to serving communities that were impacted the hardest. And so the idea is that these dollars are going to our greatest needs. And so while in the beginning, we called for the creation of a Citizens Blue Ribbon Committee and some amount of oversight over these dollars, because there were concerns in how the city might make its choices around allocating them, I will say that the process that they've been going through more recently has been fairly transparent. And they're really sort of divvying out the dollars based upon effectively topics of interest. So the first sort of tranche of this financing that they utilized already, that went to some sort of projects that the city already needed to pay for. And so, I think there's some questionable nature there around, should ARPA dollars be going for a water tower or 52 police cars, for example, were some of the things that were financed in that first allocation. But now with this next piece, the city is thinking creatively. They've thought about joint partnerships with the county as well on how to leverage. The county also received its own allocation of these dollars. There's around 60 million. And so how they could potentially collaborate together. So the dialogue has improved. How the council is thinking about the using of these dollars has also improved as well. But certainly I wish that there were still more opportunities for sort of organized citizen input and engagement on this, rather than just simply public comments or council members getting individual emails from folks advocating on behalf of one thing or another. I wish that there was something a bit more comprehensive.
Yeah. So where they have had meetings so far, or all the activities they've kind of had so far, there were several council work sessions. So one on June 22nd, one on July 13th, July 27th, August 24th, November 1st. There was, they also brought this up in the budget workshops, and that was between August 2nd and 4th. And then there was the joint city and county meeting that they had on November 17th. And we'll have a little bit more on kind of where some of these partnerships with the county come in. And I think that's a really great thing too. Anywhere that you can partner funds together is great, and you can get a lot more done. And then you have two, entities on it versus one. And so the funding categories that Nick mentioned, what those were kind of what the city had outlined based on the criteria of these funds and kind of where they wanted to see some of this stuff go. So public safety and preparedness, is one, targeted critical infrastructure, neighborhood recovery and revitalization, community support services, job training and economic development, and then arts, nonprofits, and small businesses. And so those are the kind of funding categories that they want to kind of stick this stuff in. And so like we said, there were some funds already allocated, and there was some that hadn't been officially allocated yet, but there were placeholder numbers in there. And so the city staff was putting forth some changes and some requests for changes to some of those numbers, and then also just the discussion on some of these other things. And so one of the things that's coming out of this, that's the city and county partnership, is the creation of a joint city and county health department. So right now it's, the city of Lubbock has their health department and they're responsible for all of that. But this would be obviously the city and the county partnering. And if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be at the same location as the one now.
Yeah. And so this is just a great thing. And it's something that for folks who follow public health in the region has been something we should have done a long time ago, because Lubbock County as a whole doesn't really have great healthcare servicing functioning operations, but they do have to provide services to rural communities that surround us, right? So that's what the county's responsibility is. And they work with the South Plains Association of Governments to get some financing to try to provide some of those services, like ambulances, things like that. Now, they don't have the infrastructure, or really, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the county, because it's servicing such a large area that's a predominantly rural population. It hasn't made a lot of sense for them in the past to really invest heavily into public health in a meaningful way, and in the way that those communities deserve to be serviced. And so finding this type of partnership, I think, is just a great thing. This is going to be under the leadership of the Director of Public Health for the City of Lubbock, Catherine Wells, who is just an absolute star in talent and her ability to manage a public health department. And so for those that are in the rural areas, this is a huge benefit to them because they'll be able to access more comprehensive services as a result of this partnership coming together. So just all around, a really great thing to see this happening. There's some details when it comes to how the governance will work that are a bit unique in terms of who gets to appoint board members and such and so forth. But this is something that is great to see moving forward and will benefit both the city of Lubbock, because their health department will get county resources to help them provide their services. And in exchange, everyone living within Lubbock County will now be able to have a health department that they can access and find services from.
Yeah. And so how this looks today is there's a 9-member board of public health, and those 9 members right now are currently appointed by the city council. And so with this new setup, how this would work is the city council would appoint 6, or this is the proposal that's been put forward. The city council would appoint 6 and the county commissioners court would appoint 3 of those. Now, as far as the service delivery, so like, actually getting treatment and all those kind of things, and the oversight through the board, all of that will be a true joint operation between the city and the county. So all of their resources will be put together on those things. But where they will retain some differences here is that the city council and the county commissioners court will each retain their own public health authority. So the city's health authority right now is Dr. Ron Cook. And the Lubbock County has their own health authority. So where this comes into play is if there ever needed to be a public health order again. So for instance, how we had the lockdowns or mask orders or things of this nature. So if there ever needs to be a public health order like that, if it affects the city, then so the city can make its own health order, right? And so if it's an order for the city by the city council, that will not extend out into the county. And then the county also has the authority to do the same thing. So if they wanted to have a county public health order, whatever that order may be would not extend into the city of Lubbock. And so that's kind of a slight difference from how things are now. And so that's pretty much what's going on there. Again, I think this is a good thing. And so we will, of course, keep everybody up to date on that. Another thing that they were requesting was a slight change to the money that was being allocated for the Mental Health Diversion Center. And we spoke a little bit about this on the last show, but what this is going to be is basically a crisis center. So if somebody is in crisis right now, this moment, and an officer is called, then the officer will be able to, I mean, they can't just take them to the diversion center. I was actually just hearing from Sergeant Bergen on this, but they can't just show up and just say, okay, you're having an episode, we're going to take you to the diversion center. They can't make that call. So what that would look like on the ground is they would show up, LPD would show up, they would assess the situation. If it's found out that somebody's having a mental health crisis, they can ask that person or the family and say, hey, here's your options, right? You can go to jail or you can go to the diversion center, but they have to make the call because, the person could flip out and not want to be cooperative and things like that. And then they may just have to end up in jail. But if they can get the situation calmed down and get the person to agree to go to the diversion center, then they can take them there. And so all the details as far as the whole working relationship with LPD hasn't been fleshed out yet, but that's kind of the gist of how that would work.
And that's it's exciting to see this. It's something that the gaps when it comes to treating individuals in crisis, whether that be related to mental health, whether that be related to substance use disorders within our community, we have always had massive gaps within those services. And so this collaboration is, my understanding, is also going to bring in Texas Tech ultimately through the Texas Tech Health Sciences Center. And some of the reasons why that this is coming about were informed by the Meadows Foundation's mental health report that was done for the West Texas region that showed just how little and how much lacking we are of resourcing when it comes to mental health and mental health issues. And so this facility ultimately will have some amount of beds capacity for individuals to be able to stay there for a brief period in time, something of a transitional housing model for those individuals so that they'll be able to plug into social services and not slip through the cracks. Because I remember in the instance when it came to substance use disorder, when managed care, the only facility that we had here that would treat individuals that didn't have insurance, when they closed, there were mental health professionals and counselors within Lubbock who were openly saying that one of the recommendations that they were giving to their clients who were either going into relapse or didn't have somewhere to seek treatment was to essentially commit a crime, because the only way that they could have access to any type of substance use treatment was actually to go to the county jail and to access the county jail program. So there's a lot of fragmentation when it comes to our ability to provide social services for individuals who are in crisis. And so it's exciting to see this. I think it's great to see that there is a collaboration developing on this project, and it's bringing together a lot of great community service providers in thinking about this from a different way.
Yeah, and so the change that they were requesting, I think they were already allocating $3 million to this, so they were just requesting to bump it up to $3.5 million because apparently there's something that needs to be done to the road over there. This is going to be a partnership with the city and Star Care, and so this will actually be on the Star Care property, and so there's some things that need to be kind of put in place there. So, and
kudos to Star Care on this. So for those who are not familiar, Star Care is the Medicaid managed care organization for this area. So what that means is that they service many of the individuals who use Medicaid. So Medicaid is for those who are in low socioeconomic status. That's how they're able to access health insurance. Now in Texas, that's a fairly limited number. We never adopted or expanded Medicaid in the state of Texas. And so there's a lot of folks that still don't have access to that service. But when it comes to Star Care, their campus is quite large. And they were willing to step up and allow for a part of their campus to be used to build out this facility, which makes a lot of sense because there likely will be a lot of cross-service provisioning, a lot, potentially some synergies with the work that they're doing as the Medicaid managed care organization here with the diversion center.
Yeah, and then one thing I forgot to mention also is that the county is also helping on this project as well. So from what the city manager said, they are pledging a similar amount to the 3.5 million. And so again, another good partnership there with the county. And I would assume that maybe has something to do with the county jail or.
Hopefully, we are, in some ways, we're exemplary in some of our criminal justice diversion programs. And I know that there's a lot of folks here who want to see us continue to pursue those and to do more because there's far too many of our citizens here who are ending up in jail or ending up in prison, not because that's the right place for them to be, but because we just didn't have another alternative.
Yeah. So, and I know that there was some confusion. We were actually getting some mixed signals on this. This diversion center is not, I mean, it will help with people who are experiencing homelessness, but it's not only for people experiencing homelessness. So this would be for anybody in the city.
Yep.
And so another change request that the city staff had was for the affordable housing allocation that the city was looking at. They were already looking at allocating 1.25 million. That was, from what I understand, because they had a partner, a private sector partner to actually build homes, I would assume. And so they're now negotiating with a second, which would mean more rooftops. And this of course would be under the affordable housing programs that we have here in the city.
So this is exciting. And there also should be some caveats because, when we're thinking about affordable housing in Lubbock, one of the challenges is that some of the developers that are building what I'll say, quote unquote, affordable housing are really building substandard houses that their lifespan is maybe 10 to 15 years at max. And so, we always have to be wary when it comes to thinking about these programs because not all housing is created equal. And how these are being vetted, the individuals that are building them, and what their track record is for building high quality housing where we're really talking about things that are going to stick around for a long time is something that we always need to be mindful of. Now, a great example of this is the King's Dominion project. And this, my understanding is this is how some of these dollars are going to be used in a similar way, where the city of Lubbock, and to some extent through what was called the North and East Lubbock Development Corporation, the NELCDC, provided some financing for roadways, plumbing, sewage, electrical wiring on a large plot of land so that a builder could then come and effectively easily build out housing on that. And so King's Dominion, many consider that to be quite successful. Those houses are very sturdy, very solid, high quality housing. They're made out of brick. They look great. Could use more trees, but other than that, those were done very well. And so my hope would be that this project and the types of housing that's going to be created is at least at a similar standard to what we've seen previously done through similar programs.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. So these houses that Nick is talking about that were kind of thrown up, a lot of folks refer to them as shoebox houses because if you look at them, they look like a shoebox, and they're hard to miss if you see them. They're in several places across the city. So another under the broadband section of the ARPA dollars, the staff was putting forward a recommendation of $2 million allocation from the ARPA funds. So there's a kind of a few things going on here. So these would essentially be to build out towers. And so there is a pilot project that the city is looking at. And apparently there was a lot of thought put into this and different people consulted on this, but there's in the northeast part of the city is where they are proposing this pilot project. And that was also, the decision to have it there was also made with information from the TEA. And so the TEA was involved in this. And then there's the Broadband Development Office that the governor created that will also be helping with this. And so the total project cost for this pilot project would be $9 million. And so where we get the $2 million from, or where the city staff got $2 million from, is because the TEA is actually putting in $7 million for this project, which is great. And so us having to come up with $2 million on a $9 million project is not bad.
Right. Anytime that you have the opportunity to get that kind of ratio of local dollars to state or to federal dollars, it's certainly something that you need to consider and think about. Because of the fact that you can just simply do a lot more, and ask the question, what will the benefit be? And this is just a great example of that, and especially because I'm very thankful for state level entities stepping up and providing the financing on something like this, because at the federal level, there's a lot of disagreements with the way that broadband access is measured, and areas that are either eligible for the federal programming for broadband expansion or not. And so for TEA and for the BDO, the Broadband Development Organization at the state level, to be able to step in and recognize that while those areas of north and eastern parts of the city of Lubbock, at the federal level, it would look as though, because everything washes out, it would look as though that they're doing fine because their numbers would be included with the rest of the city of Lubbock. But in fact, if you drive out into those areas, or if you live in those areas, you know that broadband access is a challenge, and whether it be trying to get a connection to Suddenlink, you're certainly not going to get gigabit anything out there, that's 100% for sure. And so those are areas that are getting left behind, right? We know that broadband is very much so becoming a public good. It's something that is essential for communities to have access to. And in COVID time, that really emphasized it in a huge way. Whenever students that didn't have access to good broadband services, it's a struggle to utilize online learning. It's a struggle to video conference with their teachers, and the quality of their education can actually suffer as a result of not being able to have good access. So I think this is great, and it's wonderful to see federal or state level dollars actually playing a role in facilitating this necessary and very much so needed connectivity.
Yeah, and then so the other kind of things didn't really have numbers to them. That's what the city manager was kind of trying to get the council to discuss, and this is ongoing. And so the only one that really has a placeholder is for the arts, which is 1 million. And then there's nonprofits, small business, and job training. So I was able to catch some of the conversation on the small business part of this. And it was really interesting to find out that, and Nick, you'll remember the exact number of the funds they gave out to small businesses the last time. I can't remember the number. Was it 300 million, right?
Yeah, something around there.
Yeah, so the 300 million, Councilman Chavez asked last time, how long did it take them to disperse that, right? And how many businesses? And I want to say it was something like 130 businesses or something.
Are you talking about? Are we talking payroll protection or the city's? The city's program. The city's program was, it was maybe 6 million in total. No, it was maybe 3 million in total. 1.5.
Right.
Yeah. 1.5 from the city. 1.5. 1.5 from LEDA, 1.5 from SPAG, the South Plains Association of Governments.
And so they said the 3 million was gone, and the city manager said from people actually coming to pick up checks in the lobby, the last check was picked up in about 2 weeks. And I believe it was 130 businesses that they were.
Well, there was a huge need there, and one thing I would say on that, and we still have the opportunity to do this. There is something called a Community Development Finance Institution that exists here in Lubbock called the People Fund. The People Fund, through American Rescue Plan dollars with other cities in the state of Texas, has paired up to be able to provide lending programs to micro entrepreneurs and small businesses, right? So if you recall, the city of Lubbock's program, you were only eligible if you brought in, you had to be over $100,000 plus dollars in revenue a year in order to even be eligible for the city's quote unquote small business program. And so, by comparison, the People Fund and the programs that they're able to bring to bear are at a much lower level. And so they also provide financial literacy services for the work that they do, and have the ability to use city dollars and make those dollars go a lot farther because they're essentially able to leverage them to lend more debt out to folks. And so this is a collaboration that they have with cities like Plano and Dallas. And it's something that we absolutely should consider. We have the People Fund. We have a branch within the city of Lubbock. They opened just right as COVID began. It's a blessing that they're here. And we really should think about partnering with them and leveraging the fact that they're here in a more meaningful way. So I'd love to see some kind of collaboration on micro lending coming out of this as well.
Yeah, and one thing that was encouraging, and we'll have to see how it plays out, but the mayor and others were saying that they wanted to make sure that this time around that they were able to touch folks who weren't able to get some of that help last time. And so hopefully they kind of go along the line of thinking you're going down and try to help some of those, what we would call true small businesses. So that's one of those funny things with the definition of small business, you know, like some people say a small business is one with 1 million in revenue, right? So it's like,
you know, it's my tiny $1 million small business. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, but I mean, and we have to think about it also through the lens of community and through race, right? So in the city of Lubbock, and these numbers are true across the United States, when you ask the question, who are who are individuals, what group of community or what communities are more likely to be, say, single member businesses, right? So no employees whatsoever, or say maybe 1 or 2 or 3 employees. And in the United States, we know that overwhelmingly those types of businesses are typically run by Hispanic people or Black people. And so when you think about programs that are only servicing larger size, quote unquote, small businesses, you have to recognize the fact that there's a disparate impact when it comes to race, when it comes to racial populations, and whether or not communities are able to access these types of things. And that's not the intention of the programs, but it's something that you have to be aware of when you're creating them and constructing them, to make sure that you aren't systemically discriminating against certain groups just simply because their businesses are smaller. That doesn't, in my mind, mean that they shouldn't be worthy or deserving of having access to these programs. And so, and especially for those types of businesses, those are the ones that can be the hardest hit, right? A very, very small business. Those are ones that don't have banking partners, right? So when the payroll protection program was coming out, you absolutely needed a good banking partner to be able to access that program in a meaningful way. And so it was those businesses that didn't. They weren't able to pick up a phone and call their banker. They didn't have one, right? And then if they were able to finally get in touch with a banker, and the banker said, well, I need 12 months worth of your financial statements organized in X fashion and in this way with good accounting practices and principles, these are not individuals that typically have the ability to balance the books in that way, that really are sort of operating on the fringes and are just trying to get by. And so, those are the individuals that end up getting sort of left behind when it comes to these programs. And we saw that, as Lubbock Compact, we published some density data on where the payroll protection program dollars were going in the city of Lubbock. And I mean, no surprise there, but you could see that there was a huge difference in businesses and dollars flowing into the city of Lubbock and based upon what area you were in, right? And so I-27 and Clovis Highway were effectively barriers. Anything sort of east or north of those areas, really, there was not a whole lot of those dollars that were going in. And it makes sense when you think about on paper the kinds of relationships that you needed to even be able to access it.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, and then we'll probably end off the show here. It's been a good 30 minutes. We're probably not going to go the whole hour, but the one thing I do want to say here is for the folks out there who may have a small business and, or maybe it's not you with these thoughts, maybe there's somebody in your ear with these thoughts about not taking money from the government, et cetera, et cetera. I want to talk about why this is a bad way to look at this. So first and foremost, it's important to understand how does this money come to us, right? How does it ultimately get to us? Well, it's your tax dollars. It's your tax dollars. So when we pay taxes and do all of these things, that's how these funds, when the government releases funds, they're not just kind of printing money out of nowhere and releasing them. These are basically our tax dollars coming back to us. And so it's not anybody. I know a lot of folks have a lot of pride and they look at it as a handout or something. I would rather look at it as a hand up, because it's not like, they're just pressing a magic button, giving you some money and then everything's done. No, you still have to do the work. You still have to kind of go through the processes of trying to rebuild and things of that nature. And so it's just a bad way to look at it. And I want to say that because what we saw very clearly when the paycheck protection loan and the EIDL loans were being dispersed from the COVID funds, that the majority of the folks getting those were not Black and brown people. They just weren't. And you can look through the numbers and see this. And so, I know a lot of times in our communities, we look and we say, oh, well, the white people don't do this. They absolutely do. It's not a colored thing. It's based on a need for a business. And it's just, to me, it's just smart to take the money, use it to rebuild, versus having so much pride that you don't do that and possibly go out of business altogether, or you're in a really bad situation when you really just don't have to be. And so I would just encourage anybody out there to look into this. Also, if you have an organization or something that deals with any one of these categories, reach out to the city council or reach out to your city council member and see if there's a way that you can get some of these ARPA dollars, because as we stated, there's so much money here, right? And you can see that they're just kind of taking little pieces here and there. It's not like they're taking huge chunks. So there's going to be some of this money available. It just only makes good sense for as many people as possible to try to get some of that and do some good with it here in the city, whether for yourself or for your community or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of my soapbox about, taking these relief funds and things of that nature.
And I just agree with that. I think even my own family. So my mother's side of my family immigrated from Mexico when she was 14. And her brothers have a very similar feeling around this, the pride when it comes to not wanting to access programs, this sort of guilt that's felt as though that they're being perceived as being moochers or takers, or being ungrateful for being able to be here. My uncle Lombardo served in Vietnam. He was wounded there, has suffered from PTSD for many years as a result. And he refuses to go to the VA because he believes that because he can afford to pay for a hospital, to pay for his medical care himself, that he doesn't want to use the service, because he says, let people who need it use it. And and for me, I'm like, Lombardo, you need it. Like, there's a lot of services you're not getting that are part of the program that you could have access to take care of you. And that exists to be able to be taken advantage of. And, it wasn't always the case like that in the United States, right? Even here in Lubbock, when we think about how the GI Bill had a massive impact on the growth of the city of Lubbock. So Lubbock really didn't come into its own until after World War II. This is a very military, veteran-oriented community. A lot of folks, both in Lubbock and the surrounding West Texas region, went to war for this country. And when they came back, they benefited not just from the GI Bill government programs for grants for the university and studying at Texas Tech, and that was when Texas Tech had its big boom, but also housing grants and low interest loans that they had access to be able to build the Heart of Lubbock neighborhood, areas expanding beyond Tech Terrace. A lot of the city, older portions of the city that we see today, that was financed through GI Bill dollars. Now, what we now know in hindsight was that those dollars didn't go to everybody equally, that Black veterans, which we had many here in the city of Lubbock, did not have access to those same programs, despite serving as honorably, despite their war efforts being just as commendable. Those programs were denied to them when it came to either being able to access the university or being able to access low interest rate loans to finance generational wealth by being able to get equity in a house. And so, these things have not always been accessible to the Black and brown communities here. And so, please I like that. Think of it as a hand up, right? And especially because if you're running a business, recognize that if you go into dire straits, if you get into that big hole, it's just so much harder to get out. And so any opportunities that you have to lessen that blow, to lessen the decrease in your operating income during these periods in time, take it. You've got to think about how you're surviving and how you're going to be here the next year and the year after that, because we need you. We need you here. Yeah. We need your economic activity. We need your entrepreneurial spirit. And so think about it that you're doing all of us a favor by taking those dollars and making sure that your company stays afloat and is an active part of our community over time.
Yeah. And just one last thing I'll add is that there's no shame in it. So I don't think anybody should feel any shame in taking this money. You should actually look at it as being resourceful, right? So if you have resources there available and you're not taking them, that's not being resourceful. And so part of being good at business is being resourceful and using the resources that are available to you. And so I guess we'll back down off the soapbox now, but it's very important. And I want to see people do better in our communities. I want to see us thrive just as everybody else thrives. And so it's just, I felt it very important to mention that. And so that's it. That's all we got for today.
Yeah, no, it's been what a great year, as we're sort of wrapping up. Adam, it's been a pleasure to be able to do these shows. The community engagement that we've had, the involvement over this year has just been amazing and exciting. I think about where we were last year or even, a year and a half ago during the summer protest movement, and where things have gone and where the dialogue of the city has gone, where engagement in the city has gone. Seeing entire neighborhoods like Dupree coming together, or like Heart of Lubbock coming together, is just something that if you had told me a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have never believed. And so it truly is a transforming city, a different city. It's been amazing to be a witness to that as we've gone on this journey together, and as we've commented and reported and tried to give feedback and our thoughts on these developments throughout the city of Lubbock. But it's just a new day here, and I'm optimistic and I'm excited and looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, and I'll echo what you said there. I mean, as I've been and I've been at a lot of community events recently. Everybody's doing their Christmas stuff, and so good times all around. But I have noticed this as well from when I got started in this work in the summer of 2020 to now. Just the level of activity is unreal. It's not as hard to. I don't even think here in a while that I've even had a conversation like trying to convince somebody to get engaged.
Right.
It's just pretty much, folks have been willing and ready to get engaged. We've seen, as you all know, I go to all of the neighborhood association meetings every month, and the attendance at those, at every single one across the city, is growing. The engagement is growing, and that's what we need. And as you all know, we always remind you to join your neighborhood association. There are currently 11. 10 of them are actively meeting. The only one that hasn't been actively meeting for a while would be the historic Overton neighborhood. But Roger has been at all the other neighborhood association meetings, so they're operating to some degree, but they haven't had their own meetings in a while. But there are 10 others that are out there, and so there's let's see, there's the West End. If you're in West Lubbock, that neighborhood, there's the West End there. In East Lubbock, you have Parkway, you have Dunbar, you have Chapman Hill. And then in North Lubbock, you have Guadalupe Neighborhood Association, and you have the North Lubbock Neighborhood Association, which pretty much you can be from anywhere in North Lubbock, Guadalupe, Jackson, Arnett, whatever. And that's North Lubbock Neighborhood Association. You have Tech Terrace Neighborhood Association in Central Lubbock. Also in Central Lubbock is the Heart of Lubbock Neighborhood Association. And in kind of, what would it be like? Kind of central southwest Lubbock, the Bayless Atkins Neighborhood Association excuse me. And so there's pretty much no matter where you're at, unless you live in a neighborhood that may have a homeowners association or something, there's a neighborhood association near you. And even if you're not in that neighborhood, you are completely welcome to join these. And I say that because there's so much good information given out at these. I'm in every single one, and on many of their agendas, I'm on their agenda because they like to hear updates from Lubbock Compact. So a lot of times the neighborhood associations have even more up-to-date information than you all who watch Lubbock Compact Live every week. And it's not just us, it's all sorts of departments from the city, codes enforcement, fire department,
neighborhood planner,
LPD, neighborhood planner, health services. There's just so much stuff. Catholic Charities with their kinship program and all the great things that they have going on. And there's just so many resources that you could take advantage of, or maybe your family and friends could take advantage of, and you could pass information along. And so that's why we're always harping on going to your neighborhood association meetings and getting involved in those. And also just something else that's coming down the pipeline is through the neighborhood planner, the city of Lubbock is actually going to have more efforts to help neighborhood associations increase their attendance. So lots of good stuff going on there. And then also you get to keep up with cool events that are happening in the neighborhood. Sometimes there's like the Poncho Claus thing that just happened. You know, you have the back to school bash we did in East Lubbock. There's just so many different events that you'll be able to be a part of and stay up on.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's just a wonderful and good message to end with, you know, and it's been a great year. I look forward to the new year and what comes with that. And, you know, hope everybody has a wonderful holiday and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, everybody have a happy holiday season, and we will see you right back here, not next Wednesday, but in the new year. So hope everybody has a happy holiday, and we will, until then, see you later.